Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I need a little more coffee. I'm going to start you out with this. This is Ray Fuentes over at Link2. Check it out.
Hi everyone, it's Ray Link2. Today's Wednesday, March 8th, and the Link2 portfolio company Ripple Labs has been restocked on the Link2 platform with a limited amount of inventory. But thankfully, just in time for Judge Torres' recent ruling on the Dauber motions, I'll let the Link2 member, attorney John Deaton, who was just on Fox Business yesterday, explain exactly what this means.
The victory we got was there was an expert the SEC was offering who was going to testify as to what XRP holders thought in their head when they purchased XRP. Of course, he never interviewed one single XRP holder in his entire career, and he received a $3 million contract from guess who? The SEC.
Oh, nice.
To serve as a witness. And so the judge excluded that part of his testimony that he's not going to be allowed. To your point, though, some people believed that the decision on Dauber motions on expert witnesses could come down simultaneously with the summary judgment motion. So I tweeted out yesterday that I wouldn't be surprised if we get a decision any day now or within a couple of weeks.
All right. Now, look at this. This, many of you may not remember, but there was a guy, and he went by Hodor, which is a name from the Game of Thrones show. And he was one of the most important people in the XRP community for a long time. And he had a blog. And we know that he was one of the few people that was in direct communication at times with Ripple because he wrote about it in his blog. We also know that at the time, I think he was the only person in social media that I ever heard Brad Garlinghouse mention by name that he read. Look what he wrote. Let me see if I wrote when this was. This was July 2017. He wrote. This is before. Remember, this is before all of the shenanigans. Before ETHgate, before the fake lawsuits, before the SEC lawsuit. This was what the thinking was at the time. This is not the case for Ripple. Now that Ripple is approaching what is considered to be a mature stage for a Silicon Valley startup, there are several very exciting options for raising funds to power them into the next level. Pursuing a purchase by a larger company, Google, etc. Private IPO, public IPO. All these speculative possibilities are very exciting and in my opinion would catapult XRP price forward by a massive amount just on the announcement alone. So Link2 is my sponsor. The link's in the top of the description. They have a little bit of private equity left, and they keep saying that they're having a tough time getting it at this point because where we are in this case. But there's two things there. This Ripple case is coming to an end, and when it does, one way or another, they're gonna IPO. Now, I believe that when the decision is made, I believe that there could be the market could get some mixed signals at first. But I believe at some point, the public's going to realize what I've realized since really 2015, maybe, that XRP is the one, and it's always been the one. Okay, now this goes right into what John Deaton was just talking about the expert witness and how people perceived XRP. Did they think they were buying a security and all this? Look what Jeremy Hogan found. He said, in her recent order, the judge cited the Marine Bank versus Weaver case at least 3 times when discussing what a reasonable XRP purchaser believed when they bought XRP issue. It's a Supreme Court case which asks whether the thing sold was commonly thought of as a security. Well, the second I read this, it was like an aha moment for me, and I'll show you why in a second. First, I want to show you what Ashley Prosper says. So Judge Torres prohibited Expert 1 from opining on what XRP holders believe when buying XRP and use case law that would require that XRP was commonly thought of as a security when sold when we know it was not. It's clear now XRP will not be a security. Well, guess who? The first time that I ever heard anyone give an opinion on XRP as a security was you know who, Gary Gensler. I remember this like it was yesterday, folks. This was an article from, I remember literally making fun of the guy. Like, who is this guy coming out of retirement? And I remember covering this. Gary Gensler literally came out of retirement to come out and do this op-ed. And I think it's important that you understand two things: the date and the guy that wrote it. Nathaniel Popper wrote it, April 22nd, 2018. Gary Gensler just happens to come out and have a New York Times article written on him. And here's what he floats. It says second and third, on Monday, that the second and third most widely used virtual currencies, Ether and Ripple, have most likely been issued and traded in violation of American securities regulations. There's a strong case for them both, but particularly Ripple, that they are non-compliant securities, he said in an interview. He believes Bitcoin, the original virtual currency, can remain exempt from securities regulations. Okay? This was on, remember, April 26th of 2018. This is the first time that it was even an issue. And the same guy who's now suing Ripple is the same guy who happened to float it as an issue. But when he floated it and who floated it for him are important. And here's why. Nathaniel Popper, April 22nd, 2018. Okay, here's the article right here. Well, look at the article by Nathaniel Popper just 2 or 3 days later on April 19th, 2018. This was when it supposedly is leaked that the Venture Capital Working Group is meeting with the SEC. This is what the safe harbor that Lowell Ness wrote, Perkins Coie, that eventually became the Ethereum free pass. Look at the beginning of this. Venture capitalists and entrepreneurs have been lobbying federal regulators to protect at least some virtual currencies from being categorized as securities. The venture capital firm Andreessen Horowitz helped assemble a group of investors and lawyers that met with the SEC in late March. They also proposed a safe harbor, okay, for some virtual currencies, according to a copy of the person, Anyway, this is the first time that I think what we know as ETHgate was leaked. Okay, it's leaked by the same guy who did the article on Gary Gensler just a few days later. If you think that's a coincidence, my igloo in South Georgia, where it will melt in 24 hours, is for sale, and we're increasing the price. And I don't know if that's a security or not, my igloo. This Gary Gensler is dirty as dirty gets, folks. And look at this. This is from Eleanor Terrett. Scoop. Gary Gensler apparently has multiple SEC email accounts that he uses. Why would he need to do this? I've reached out to the SEC for comment. And that doesn't even, Fred Rispoli says, and that doesn't even take into account his Gmail and Yahoo email accounts. Even worse, word on the street, so there are rumors apparently, is that the guy also has AOL, Hotmail, and Earthlink accounts. There's also, if you remember J.W. Verrett when he was being interviewed by Thinking Crypto a while back, J.W. Verrett said that people in the SEC were using apps to hide, I think WhatsApp was one of them, to hide their communications from oversight, Congress. So the question here is not, is this true? The question is, why is Congress not making an issue out of this? That's the question. Congress is worthless from what I can tell. Speaking of worthless, here's our Federal Reserve Chairman.
You know, a CBDC, I think you're asking whether a CBDC would serve some of that, but a CBDC is going to be years in the evaluation. And, I think we can get this into the hands of the public very quickly. And I think we'll have real-time payments in this country very, very soon. And so that's a good thing.
I would put that in the All the World's a Stage file. Now, here are the Congress people. Listen to what this congressman floats out.
The gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Lukemeyer, is recognized for 5 minutes, the chair of the National Security Subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Chairman Fowle, for being here this morning. The reserve currency status of the dollar to U.S. has enormous financial and national security benefits. In the wake of Russia's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine, the Fed took action to prevent the Kremlin from accessing more than $300 billion in reserves, roughly half of Russia's reserves. However, this led to an accelerated effort by countries like China to de-dollarize their official foreign exchange reserves. Just last week, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal titled, "Russia Turns to the Yuan." in an effort to ditch the dollar. Not only that, but China's President Xi Jinping pushed for the settlement of energy trades in the Chinese yuan at a summit with Arab leaders in December. The question is, are you concerned about these actions by Russia and China to establish different reserves and conduct transactions in non-U.S. dollars?
So the U.S. dollar is the widely accepted and really the only serious candidate for the world's principal reserve currency. And that's because of our democratic institutions, our liquid markets, the rule of law, and all those kinds of things. And also the fact that the dollar has held its value over time. So other countries who are competing on other playing fields may want to establish different currencies, but really the dollar is the one that's going to be used more broadly in international commerce because we have those aspects and other countries don't.
Well, that's true to now, but my question is, are you concerned about the actions of these countries? Because if they see themselves being challenged or concerned, for instance, if China would invade Taiwan, as Russia invaded Ukraine, there were some sanctions put on. And I don't disagree with the sanctions. The last time you were here, though, Mr. Chairman, I asked a question because it's an instructive moment for us from the standpoint that knowing that we put sanctions on Russia, all their different accounts, as well as the oligarchs from that country, are we thinking about doing the same thing to China when they invade Taiwan? And your answer at that point was no. We passed a bill out of this committee last week to ask the administration, basically, to start thinking about that in those terms. What kind of situations can you come up with? Are you talking to allies, begin to talk to them, to start putting together a list of how you would go about sanctioning the different individuals, the different accounts, things like that? So have you started thinking about that at all yet?
Well, let me say, the business of sanctions is entirely in the hands of the elected government and the Treasury.
Okay, so more BS from the Federal Reserve Chairman. Look at this. FTX debtors launch lawsuit against Grayscale, says crypto titan charged $1.3 billion in exorbitant fees. This is a narrative that is beginning right now because CNBC apparently was told to really hammer on this yesterday when they interviewed the CEO of Grayscale. If you remember, Becky Quick was going all after him, literally making fun of the guy about their fees. So apparently they've been activated against Grayscale. Now, these two clowns I do not feel sorry for because I don't have sources on this channel, but I have been told behind the scenes that these guys were literally making fun of Ripple when the SEC sued Ripple. These two clowns never did even entertain, even with customer demand, they never even entertained the idea of putting XRP on the Gemini exchange because they're ideologues, not businessmen. And so they deserve whatever they get. JP Morgan is now ditching them, and poor them. Do I feel sorry for them? Now, Mike Novogratz, who always seems to know what the regulators are doing before the retail public knows, said this in a Raoul Pal interview.
It'll burn through in the faster.
And what about the fight between the CFTC and the SEC? Because that needs to get resolved for everybody, right?
Yeah, I think that's on hold for a while. They're both like, we never said that. Listen, they were both very, very close with Sam.
How does he know?
And again, a lot of people were, and a lot of people got snookered. But Sam was negotiating to pretty much have dominance of a cash exchange that the CFTC regulates.
How does he know?
And the SEC was going to bless that as long as they got to do, non-Bitcoin and Ether. And so there was this.
How does he know?
Negotiation going on that was this close to getting done. And so I think they're both just trying to stay as far away from it as possible and be as tough.
Remember, this is the same guy that predicted like days before Hinman came out and gave his Ethereum free pass speech, he predicted, we've played you the video, he predicted that they'll say, I have a dimes to donuts, they'll come out and they'll say Ethereum used to be a security, but now it's not. I mean, literally called it because he had to know. Then he said this, because he's got the CFTC hanging out at his office, folks.
Talk me through what you thought when you saw this FTX thing unravel. Most of us kind of knew the Alameda link with FTX wasn't right. It's like...
So I explained it to people. I thought they were front running me, but I kind of thought that was the cost of the liquidity. I couldn't prove they were front running me, but there was a couple of times it certainly felt like I was getting squeezed and someone knew my positions. Matter of fact,
I thought they were breaking the law, but that's just kind of what people do sometimes, right? Man.
I was very candid 2 weeks before that happened with the CFTC commissioners. They were in my office. I was like, dude, I'm not making an actual allocation. I'm just telling you my instinct was we get front running. You can't have someone be in charge of Bitcoin liquidity and have a proprietary group 15 feet away. And they were like, yeah, we get it. But
we get it. And there's no accountability for the CFTC or the SEC, who were very close, according to him, to Sam Bankman-Fried. Instead, they go after crypto. How about go after yourselves? How about get fired? Silvergate folds in the first bank failure in U.S. since 2020. And this guy's comment's my favorite. Elizabeth Warren immediately jumps on this to try to taint the crypto industry when it's actually a bank failure for the same reasons any other bank would fail. But he says, what a hoe. Silvergate is screwed because they had fractional reserves like every other bank, nothing to do with crypto. Now, Mark Phillips, I think, lays it out right here. Look at this. SEC implies clarity for Bitcoin, Ethereum. Wall Street weaponizes SEC to sue Ripple. XRP off limits for U.S. banks and most retail. SEC allows real fraud, FTX, Celsius, etc. Congress uses fraud as excuse to hobble all crypto. Wall Street readies custody solutions. Regulators narrow USD on-off ramps to starve exchanges and weaken digital asset projects. SEC expands reach to all crypto, including Bitcoin and Ethereum. Wall Street kills or consumes all crypto exchanges. Regulators bless crypto projects offered by Wall Street. I would add number 11. XRP becomes the only digital asset with clarity while all of this other stuff is going on. What if? And then finally, I wanted to show you this because all of this reminds me of this. I don't know if this was an exact quote from David Schwartz, but this guy had put it out. But I do know that this was said in Singapore to, I can't remember who it was said to, but it was said in Singapore by David Schwartz in so many words. There was a theory going around at one time that, XRP's rise is going to be slow and steady. And in essence, David Schwartz was making the point that, yeah, because of utility, that price will start rising slow and steady, but at some point, the market will realize that that's happening because of utility, and then they'll pile in. They'll come running in. Because all of a sudden, you will have an asset, maybe for the first time in history, that has a slow rise to it because of a utility. And I don't know that that's ever happened before. And then you add the speculation. I've always compared it to a bathtub with the water rising, slowly rising, and then the speculators bouncing off of the top of that rising water. That's the way I've always thought of this thing. Well, add to that, what happens when XRP gets clarity out of this lawsuit and the market finally realizes, hey, wait a minute. All of a sudden, we thought that Ripple was under attack here, and all of a sudden, because of the lawsuit, XRP is the only digital asset that's got clarity, which means that I'm assuming that anything built on the XRP ledger would also have clarity. How about them apples? I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your friends and family that I love this theory right here.